Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Business Roundtable podcast. So glad to have you here where we have another great conversation. For those of you that are tuning in for the first time, my name is David Carr of Steward Your Business, where I focus on organizational health, helping team leaders, business owners build a team that they're proud of, working together, accomplishing great things. I'm super excited to have back Bil Hatch. Bil, welcome. Oh, and Bill's frozen. There he goes. Bill, are you? There we go. He's waiting for you watching on the video. Here he is. Welcome back, Bill. Oh. So, and then we have.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Bill's.
I of course am. Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yes. Yes, I do. I do a couple of podcasts under the banner of Bald Spots Productions. I produce a show, a roundtable show called Not Quite After Midnight that has a variety of guests, as opposed to a strictly business podcast. And then I also do a couple of Christian broadcasts.
You're all over it, Bill. Oh, so. And then we've got a special guest that I've known for a long time, Adam Poling. Welcome, Adam. If you don't mind just kind of introducing yourself to the team, to the audience, because you're new and we're so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, David. Yeah. Hi, I am Adam Poling, and I have known David for goodness, quite a few decades now, and so it's such a pleasure to be on here. I've had a multitude of business opportunities and things I've been involved with during my life, and currently I have been doing business development coaching for the past 3 to 4 years. So, and I'm located here in Texas, Austin, Texas, to be specific.
We're glad to have you, Adam. I'm super excited to have your contributions here on our topic tonight, which is critical to business. It is really crucial conversations, having constructive conflict in the workplace. And so I know both of you have had those. I've had them. And so our goal here in this podcast episode is to really help you that are listening, make sure that when you have those conversations or conflicts or collisions, if you will, that it can be the most productive that they can be, and beneficial to your organization and not a liability. So we'll just start there. And I'll just start with a question, and maybe I'll come to you first, Adam, on this about why crucial conversations? Why do we need to embrace that? Because we can embrace it or avoid it. And when we're thinking about this concept of crucial conversations and collisions and all of that, why is that important? Because some people are avoiders and some people run right into it. And what in your opinion, why do you think these are so important?
Oh my goodness, yes. It really, here it comes down to this main point is you can't run away from it. I would love to say that yes, you can, and there's a great escape mechanism, and you'll get away with it, but you won't. And the biggest reason is we don't actually go against this conflict that's facing you. It could be very small, it could be petty, it could be something that's just very minor. It'll get larger and larger and larger until it becomes something so big you can't outrun it anyways. And I have done that from experience where I've tried to outrun something in my past, and it has come back and has blown up in my face. And so I'm speaking from experience, saying it is much, much better for your psyche, for the people you're with, the people that count on you, including your family, your friends, your coworkers, and also the person that you need to have this crucial conversation with, if you just confront the issue. And you can find that it just becomes minimized, and I'll talk about the Bible side for a second. God wants us to confront our fears, And he gives us all the strength and the power to do so. If there's fear in our life, he wants us to conquer. If it's a conversation, if it's an opportunity to overcome something that is causing fear to us, being out there and just accomplishing this opens up a wide range of opportunities and things that you can then move forward in your life with. You back up, you hide from these opportunities, I'm going to call them, not even conflicts, opportunities, then you become weaker as the opportunity, as a person, as a leader, as a partner, and also as someone who is speaking with God's power with them, as a Christian, as which I am. God's going to work through you to accomplish these goals. So let God work through you to accomplish these. He wants you to be successful. So work towards them, accomplish them, and you can move forward.
Oh man, great, some great thoughts there. One of the things you triggered me in my mind, Adam, is when you bring in the God conversation, whether you believe in God or not. There's a story of Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve, they didn't have the crucial conversation. They went and hid. They said, right. I'm hiding. Hiding. I'm trying to run it. But like you said, Adam, to your point, they couldn't hide from it. Like God knew where they were. And so we can't hide from it.
You can't hide from God, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could even try to hide from coworkers or other things, but ultimately it's going to come somewhere along the line. So, Bill, for you, when you hear this conversation about colliding and collision and having these crucial conversations, what does that mean for you? Oh, let's see. All right, Bill, you're with us. Technical. See, and you thought Adam is in the tornado alley now.
It's like you can see the flashing behind my window here. And
we're gonna see if Bill doesn't. And Bill's in Missouri, so we got the central United States covered tonight. I'm here on the West Coast, where it's really nice and calm, thankfully. But if Bill comes back, we'll see if we get him. Bill, feel free to chime in once you hear us.
Okay. I think I'm with you.
There, he's back.
Can you see me now?
We can see you. You're good.
I'm back. Sorry about that. Yay! Okay. Something that Adam was saying reminded me of a story. There's a bunch of animals living in the forest, and a tiger comes along and asks if he can live in the forest with the animals. And the animals say, "Oh, it's fine. You can live here, no problem." And the sheep just kind of says, "Okay." And as time goes by, the tiger starts growling at the sheep and really making the sheep very uncomfortable until the sheep finally is so says, "Forget it. I'm leaving the forest." And she goes to the other animals and says, "Listen, I can't this tiger anymore. I'm leaving." And the other animals say, "Wait. Maybe we just need to promote some communication or do something about the tiger's attitude." And the sheep's just, no, I'm done. It's too late. And well, you can't. But the problem, if you try running from the problem or burying your head in the sand, then it's just the problem's going to get too big, and you're going to have that uncomfortable conversation sooner or later, and sooner the problem is smaller. So
yes.
So just suck it up and get it over with.
Yeah. Right. Well, think about, I like that idea, Bill, what you said, start smaller and understanding these crucial conversations. They don't start off usually these big blow-ups. It's right. Mm-hmm. It's starting off small. Think of like a pinhole leak in a pipe or something. It's a little bit, it gets worse over time. It has more destruction the longer you let it go. Right.
Yeah.
Or the gap gets bigger and bigger, to your point, what you're saying, Adam. So I think it is important to be recognize, be on the lookout for what constitutes a crucial conversation. Why is it essential to be able to identify when it's necessary to have that conversation? What's contributing? What are the elements that are kind of building up there? And so then, what do we need to look for? So I'll come back to you, Adam, for a sec. If you give us an example or two of like, where have you like said, okay, and I know you've even shared with me previously critical conversations that had to happen, right?
Yeah.
And some of them that maybe went on waited too long, and I should have had that critical conversation earlier. But what are the things that we try to do on this podcast, and those that are listening, is we want to bring value and insight so you can apply this in your own life and where you're looking at. So particularly for those people that are maybe up and coming leaders or managers, and they're like, I don't know, is this a big issue or not a big issue? What should I could be considering? So what would that look like for you, Adam? What are the things like, hey, this is leading, this is an indicator. We might need to have a collision in a positive way, address this in a constructive way.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a little different for everybody, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What I may think is a very important topic needs to be discussed now may not affect anybody else. But as a leader, you really need to be able to take a look at the environment you're creating, the culture you're creating, and really making sure that everybody's on the same page. A good leader doesn't just drive the business, but they drive the culture and the business, right?
Yep.
And so when you're just looking at like this culture I'm trying to present here is maybe I want someplace that people can come, they can feel relaxed, and they have the ability to communicate with each other. They feel that they're welcome. They enjoy being where they are. I always try to create a place that when it was 5:00, people didn't run out the door because they hated it so much. It was like 5:15, now it's 5:30. And I was like, now trying to push them. I'm like, hey guys, go home to your family, Right. So things that may affect me may not be them. But the important things to start talking about is when it doesn't just affect me personally, because I'll look and go, hey, this might affect me, but it's also affecting the business. Is it affecting the business culture? Is it affecting their ability to do their job effectively? Is it affecting my other team players' ability to do their job effectively? Is it changing their quality of work life? And I like to always bring that into balance, because just because I am passionate and I want to get this job done by last week, and I just gave it to it today. I'm really excited. I want this going, but you gotta be realistic. I try to bring this into mind and say, okay, what realistically should this conversation be about? Is it just me? Is it affecting everybody? And so I bring down these key areas and I look over them all and I kind of say, okay, taking into consideration here, would a realistic leader, would a realistic manager in my position also have a similar kind of issue with what's going on here? Would anybody likewise want to accomplish the same kind of goal I'm trying to accomplish? If so, yes, great. I move forward and then I start addressing these, making a list. I always try to go prepared, right? You really want to have a defined list of what you're looking at before you're going to them with real life examples. Nothing worse than going in there and going, every day I see you, it's just not right, and it's like, and at first you're talking in absolutes, and they're going to shoot you down immediately going, what do you mean every day? There's other days, you try to have real examples, hey, John, Susan, whoever, the past couple times I've seen you come in, you did such and such and such on this time, and I'd really like to be able to accomplish this, this, and this. Is there anything that's getting in your way? Is there anything that you want to discuss with me? Is there a reason why you can't achieve, or the reason why you're seeing this different balance and what we're trying to accomplish here? Do you have a different take on it that I'm not seeing? Share with me. Open up to me. How can I help you accomplish it at the end of the day? And that's made a big difference for me, and kind of just breaking down these few rules before jumping in deeper and really trying to attack anything too crazy. Because sometimes it's just like, you know what, actually, I've had the flu the past 3 days and I still came to work anyways. I'm like, oh my goodness, you still came into work. Thank you so much. You're doing amazing stuff for us, but please go home and get better.
Right. I want to throw it to Bill here for a minute, Bill, because on previous episodes, we've talked about core values, right? And one of the things is that, and related to what you're talking about, Adam, is if somebody is not, one of the things I use, and I'd love to get your thoughts here on this, Bill, is if your company hopefully has core values, something, a mission or a vision, all of those things. But we talked about core values quite a bit on a past episode. And if somebody's not living up to those values of the company, what would you say, in the range of a crucial conversation, Bill? How would you address that, or, pick up on that?
Well, the first thing to remember is that no one sees themselves as the villain of the story. And so you have to speak to them in a way that understands that. You know, the bad guy is not the bad guy in his or her own story. And, you know, so when you approach them about whatever issue it is someone else is having, you have to help them to understand the other position. And, you know, so empathy is definitely an important core value to be promoting in the light of that. You know, cut it off. You know, cut it off before it becomes a problem. And you know, by creating things in the environment like empathy, seeing failure as an opportunity for learning or improvement. We talked about that last week. If you missed the last episode, you missed a lot. But
yes,
like and subscribe.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
you need to. Yep. Like and subscribe. That's right. So that's the big thing that I would say is that you need to go into this already prepared. Like
yeah, like
you know,
Adam
what Adam was saying with you know, write down what it is you want to discuss. Have at least talking points over it as to the whys and wherefore and how somebody else could see the behavior as being unpleasant or worse.
Yeah. And I liked how you started, Adam, earlier about, you know, looking at this. Is this a me problem or is this something bigger? And I like the model that's been talked about. Stephen Covey talks about the circle influence, or how do we start with ourselves and radiate out, right? So looking at that, and then in looking at that, we're looking at problems directly, indirectly, and things we don't have any control over, right? So if we could start with ourselves, that may just be a crucial conversation with ourselves, right?
Those are the hard ones sometimes too.
We better like collide with ourselves and be real, you know. Stop lying to ourselves. Really realize what's going on, but then radiating out from that. You know, looking at, okay, what is that framework look like for having the conversation? I never like to have a gotcha conversation in any kind of this. And I was literally just talking to a client today because we were talking about like performance reviews, things like that, right? Where sometimes those were crucial conversations. However, I was telling her, and I advise anybody that's listening here, if your annual or, you know, performance review, let's just say it's annual, and you're having a crucial conversation, not that you can't have one there. My hope would be that you would have had conversations leading up to that, right? Like what you were saying, so that you're having, so it's not a surprise. It's not a gotcha. You're like, oh, I'm aware and I know what's going on. And again, like you were saying, Adam, if we catch this, or Bill, catching this earlier on, it doesn't need to get blown up. But the reality is paying attention. And I'll give you an example for me of different people raise up issues. And I had a conversation at one point with a gentleman I worked with, and he had said something to me it seemed to me in passing. I didn't realize the gravity of his comment and what he was bringing up to me at the time. And it should have been a crucial conversation. I didn't recognize it at the time. The way he presented it, I just didn't pick it up that way. He is a very calm, very, you know, there just wasn't a lot of emotion or anything tied to it. So I missed it. And then we had to learn a communication style to understand each other. So it's like knowing who you are and knowing your other team too. You talked about culture, Adam, earlier, of like, okay, maybe it isn't affecting me, but it's affecting this other person. And I do need to have that crucial conversation. So again, identifying that. What we ended up doing, we kind of laughed about it, but I would when he would talk with me, and because everything sounded the same to me, the way he talked, I just couldn't differentiate if this was like really, really important, or is this low? So it's literally say, hey, David, my hair is on fire, because that was like our keyword. No, my hair is on fire. This is the issue. So I learned to adapt to be able to identify and recognize these issues. But I also recognize, thankfully, he was willing to tell me that. But here's the thing I think as leaders need to know, you have to be tuned in this, because sometimes people aren't as tuned in themselves, and they really want to have a crucial conversation with you, but they have their own limitations on themselves. And so sometimes they don't bring the conversation. I mean, say, I have an open door policy, come see me. So again, as leaders yourselves, and I'll come back to you, Adam, how, again, have you recognized that, or have you learned techniques or tools in which you can then, clue in on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Strengths Finders at all.
Oh, yeah.
Great. So in my top 5, actually my number 1 is empathy. So some days it's really painful, and you can walk into a room and I'm able to really kind of sense the feeling in there. Sometimes people are like, hey, I could cut that tension with a knife. Like, I'm the guy going, here's the knife. I already felt it. I get it. I'm there with you. And so I spent a lot of time actually just having conversations with my team members. When I got to know them on a deeper level, know their passions, their dreams, what they really want to accomplish inside of work, outside of work, having a better quality of life for them planned in my head, so I can have a vision with what they want to do and what makes their life better. I can kind of sense at that point when things aren't going well. Like, if anybody else you spend a lot of time with, when they're feeling good, when they're feeling bad. And I understand that this would be difficult for a leader that may have 10, 20, 50, 100 employees or more under them to know every single person individually. But I believe they should at least know them well enough that they could just know their name. And you can kind of sense when people aren't doing well. They're not making eye contact with you. They're looking down when they're having conversation with you. They're feeling uncomfortable because they're fidgeting a lot. They're changing their head. They're coughing. You can pick on these normal mannerisms that we can get out of individuals when you can say, this person feels very uncomfortable to me. And I try to just maybe share something about myself with them. Like, hey, I have gone through this. Do you experience something like that? Maybe like, hi, we're getting ready to the holiday season. I know it's going to be busy in the retail sector. And you may be like, wow, this holiday season is coming. I'm feeling kind of tired myself. How are you doing? And just ask these open-ended questions for them. Let them not just say yes or no, because that's what they want to do probably. Boss is right here. I want to say yes or no and go away, but really kind of dig down and say, hey, how are you doing? And what has work been like for you? What do you see this holiday season? Get them involved in it, and then you can kind of hear them. They'll start having deeper conversation with you as they trust you. So building that trust mechanism, opening that environment where they feel that they can communicate with you will get you to that next level where you can help them accomplish more and have this better trust and understanding, and so you can help them solve their problems more, and they'll be willing to come to you and have that deeper level conversation where they feel like, okay, I'm secure, I'm safe here, I want to move forward, can you help me? And as a leader, you're probably most like, yes, I want to help you because your success will be my success and our success, and we want to do those things. And so that's what I've kind of noticed.
That's a great, not everybody has that, so that's wonderful you have that gift, Adam, of empathy. Bill, I want to ask you a question here. Because I know one of your focuses is ethics, right? Business ethics. So how do you approach somebody when they're, like you said, maybe they don't see themselves as the villain, they don't see themselves, but ethically they're not in alignment with what the business is. Maybe they don't know it, but how do you number one identify? I think you can identify that, but what do you do to approach that person, especially when they don't think they're being a villain? Like, hey, I'm getting the job done, I'm working it right, I'm getting things covered, I'm being productive. You're like, well, maybe not in the way that we would want to be doing that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one, because if you haven't already set up the culture where such behaviors are discouraged, unwelcome, however you want to put it, however strongly you want to put it, then you're really starting from behind. You've got an uphill battle ahead of you, because like policy doesn't know that people see them as a Viking with a battle axe. And but I have an open door policy. My door's always open, and and they just don't see it. You need to go in there with prepared with, this is what these other people are feeling. You have to teach them how to be empathetic to others. So and so is introverted. It's like we need you to understand how that feels when you come in to them like a bull in a china shop. Coming in, just running in, and it's like, hey, I'm really so excited about such and such. They really don't understand that. And things like, you've had Maurice on the show, and what's Mo's
Powerality?
Personality profiling program. What's it called?
Powerality? Powerality.
But to figure out these kinds of powerality. There we go. Powerality. Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry, Mo, that I forgot that. Powerality. Using systems like Powerality to help people understand the emotional status, the processes that are internal to people, that are native to people. It can be such important tools. And I highly recommend getting one in place so that you can help your people understand how to work with one another, especially in the top-down side of things, because the people at the bottom are afraid of the people at the top because they don't want to be looking for another job. Yeah.
Well, to your point, Bill. And one of the reasons why we're all on here tonight too is those that do want to reach out to us and get more information, please do. All of us will respond happily to you. I found tip to this. What you're saying, I hear you saying, Bill, is that if you're going to have a crucial conversation, sometimes it doesn't mean, like you said, either be prepared going into it. I would also argue, just make the point, because this has been helpful for me, where I've had difficult HR discussions, human resources, where I actually either had a second person in the room talking with the person. Don't always go it alone. Sometimes it's fine to be one-on-one. I'm not saying that that's not appropriate, but there may be a point where you want to bring another person in to the conversation to help, again, address the issues and make sure that it's not
who that person.
Go ahead.
Right. And who that person is could be different depending on what the situation is, depending 100%. On what your nightmare scenario is. I have a nightmare scenario. This was back in the 90s, when it's entirely possible we first met. But I was still going to school at Cal Poly, and I was chair of the Rose Float Committee. Being new to leadership and not really understanding a lot of the things that went on, I learned a really, really hard lesson. One of the guys on my team recommended his sister for our committee internal HR position. All she was going to do was make sure people were put into the right positions, that things ran smoothly, that we didn't have any problems. And it turned out she had mental issues. She had a record with the campus police. They had to remove her from locations on campus before. I was surprised when I found out all this. I'm like, and she's still allowed to be on campus after doing these things. Oh, no. We tried to. She was not the kind of person who could work with anyone under any circumstances. And I let her in based solely on her brother's recommendation, instead of interviewing, instead of checking on records or anything like that. It was inconceivable to me that someone might have a police record who would be going to Cal Poly. Go figure. I really didn't know anything. And, we had our advisor go to her and try to get her to step down from the position, and she started calling foul on race and gender and age and all these kinds of every ism you could come up with, so thankfully, one of the other ladies on the committee happened to be in her demographic, very closely related in her demographic. And so we had her make the motion to kick her out. And we literally had to call PD to get her out of the facility. We had to escort the poor lady home who moved to have her be dismissed from the committee. We had to escort her home. We had her in one person's car driving the opposite direction, and somebody else drove her car home just in case she was followed. It was just a nightmare of nightmare scenarios. And you really have to be careful about these things. You have to go in. Sometimes you have to go in. What was it Charlie said last week? Higher tough. So that you can manage easy. And sometimes you have to do that. You have to imagine that the nightmare scenario is going to happen with this person. So you have to root it out. You have to find it. What is the problem going to be? And it's a terrible thing to have to think, but they can happen. And and when they do, you need to be prepared.
Yeah, that's a good lead in then.
So that's my nightmare scenario.
And again, we didn't have the crucial conversation with this gentleman beforehand of like, hey, what would that look like you said, so on you, and then that there's the consequences that you had to deal with the fallout there. So sometimes it doesn't, maybe it's not like we're seeing past behavior. This is like being proactive front end crucial conversation that needs to be had too. It doesn't have to wait till things are bad. That would have avoided it. So as we look at this, we kind of understand, we've gone through, identified why crucial conversations need to be had. These I call constructive conflicts or collisions, if you will. And we started to talk a little bit about how to construct that, how to set up that conversation, how to prepare. But I'll come back to you, Adam, again, as we're looking at tools or techniques. And again, it could be based on a specific scenario. I've mentioned performance reviews earlier, but what are either we talked a little about preparing and feel free to chime in either one of these, Adam. Ways when you're actually in ways of communicating. So you mentioned a little bit about empathy. What would you say for somebody, for example, that maybe doesn't have the empathy card in their front pocket?
Sure. If you kind of go the exact opposite of empathy and really just kind of go data-driven numbers, I believe everybody should have like KPIs or a scorecard kind of created for them before they start the position. They should really know what they're getting into and what they need to accomplish. If anything, SMART goals. Not sure. I'm sure you guys have discussed SMART goals here as well. And so when you have these time-based measurable goals that they're sitting in front of and they understand what's being expected of them, along with hopefully processes and procedures, SOPs, and so they can understand fully what they should be accomplishing, the time frame and the goals involved with it. It becomes very, very natural and very easy to have conversations with them. And what I like to use is actually something called a communication log. Okay. And I would use a communication log that's very simple. It has the employee's name, and then it goes to what's being discussed, And then at the very end, was this a safety topic? Was this a business topic? Or was it just a general conversation you had? And I use these quite often. It could be against something that's a concern that we want them to improve on. And I also would use them proactively for successes. I would make it both. I say, hey, you had, some rough times this past week. I would love to see these things that we could work on changing and improving. I would give them opportunity to discuss into it. They can write on that log with me. We can make a plan together to see how we can accomplish these, and we both sign it at the end. And in the same way, we would have conversations about, hey, you nailed it. You knocked it out of the park last week. I gave you some things and some deliverables on, and you also delivered X, Y, and Z. You made things much better for the entire team because of this. And knowing that I really want to put this down on the log. So next time we have a deeper conversation, I'm going back to this log again. It's not, hey, you're always failing here. What's going on? Why am I always having a conversation? I'm like, oh, because I may have 30 employees, 50, 100 employees. Like, wait, you know what? I may have had 2 conversations with this person in the past 6 months because they're dated, but I also had one of these was a really good conversation. They really were successful also. And this is also a wonderful tool when you're having those maybe biannual or annual reviews. You go back into that conversation, that communication log, and you kind of go down this communication log and say, okay, great. I see here that there's some things we discussed. Let's review this. Was there improvements? Was there not improvements? Was there a backslide? Did we succeed on here? And again, just kind of how you guys were reviewing and saying before, biannual or annual review should never be a surprise. There's everything that's on that should just be a recap of what they already know and what you already know. No one should go in there with any kind of worries. And that always made it very easy for me. In fact, my employees already know exactly what we're going to talk about when we get in there. It didn't become a 2-hour conversation in the battle. It was like, hey, thanks. We already know where we're at. We know what we accomplished. Let's go and just focus on these goals that we really want to achieve to move the needle forward. It wasn't like, okay, now let's talk about you, and I don't want to do this. This is awkward. Because what's the number one thing that every leader in the company is always saying, and it goes in at every single book, every written thing is always like, I hate reviews. I hate telling people if they're bad, or everyone likes saying, yeah, you're good, and no one likes saying, hey, what you're accomplished on. But these tools you can do is get your KPIs, get your SOPs, get your processes in place. Know what you want them to accomplish with their scorecards, and making sure it's smart goals that they can, and make sure in these smart goals that they're working on is that they can actually affect it. Don't put somebody who's on the engineering team in charge of accounting numbers. Say, hey, I want higher profits. I don't care if you're on the engineering team. This is what you're in charge. If they can't control it, they can't. Why are you putting that on there? It's not fair for them, right? Make sure it's things that they can control. And then you have these conversations. Hey, you could control these. We agreed on these goals, and we made these goals. Always try to make them with them, right? Don't just throw them at them. Be logical, make them with them, write them down together, and make some timelines for some SMART goals. And when they achieve them or don't achieve them, you make some notes and you try to make some corrections, and hopefully everything keeps going in the same direction. No surprises, and everyone kind of understands, and becomes actually a very productive conversation that they're typically excited to be a part of.
Yeah, I like that. What they can affect, because sometimes I feel like there's some conversations that are being had, and you've given people certain things to work on, which they either haven't. What I found some challenging things with clients is they've assigned some things, they've given an assignment, but the person hasn't fully bought in or acknowledged it. It's like just giving to them, but it's not like a clean handoff. And then the person that gave it to them is frustrated, and they're like, oh man, I got to talk with them, whatever. But did they have buy-in? Did they understand? Were they all in? Were they committed? Or is it, and so you have to own your side of it and, identify that. So that's a really good point, Adam, of being careful about what you're giving to them. Because if you're saying, well, like you said at the beginning of the episode, the crucial conversation may be myself. Is it really me, or how's it affecting the greater, company here, right?
That's right.
How about you, Bill? What are some things that you have found helpful in either preparing for a conversation or a way of communicating that conversation?
Well, I like Adam's communications logs. That's really a good thing. I'm always reminded of progress reports back in school. Bill's doing great, but he could blah blah blah. Or he could pay attention more, or Bill did this that was really good, because if you wait until the final grade comes out, it's too late.
Sorry, did you guys lose me for a second?
You're still there.
I apologize. I was like, we lost everything.
For a second, you went dark.
Yeah,
You're still there.
Lightning's hitting pretty close here.
Your internet's holding steady, Adam.
That's okay.
So.
I'm batting down.
I was just worried about you.
Thank you.
We're seeing lightning in
different cable.
We're seeing lightning out of his back window here.
And then it goes black.
You're gonna have to go and watch the YouTube or catch us on there if you're listening online. So go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
I apologize, Bill. Thank you.
Oh, and Bill's now frozen. Are you back, Bill?
No problem. What I was saying is, I think I'm here. What I was that there should be something to do as a progress report throughout the period of the performance review. Because if you are waiting until the conversation, it's already too late. Mm-hmm. It's whatever it is becoming entrenched. There's nothing you can do about it now. And then the other bonus is having something like a communication log enables you to be able to work on improving communication, because we've talked about it before that the communication is something that's so critical to business, but it's so difficult to improve because there are no direct measurements to communication. You can't have more communications. You can't just say, "Oh, we're going to communicate more." You have to be able to say, "We're going to do 3 more of these and 4 more of this," and so having logs that show what was communicated and when, and some kind of rating scale as to how well it went, how well it was received. That can be marked on the communication log as well, to know what you're going to be dealing with when that performance review comes up.
Yeah. I have a couple of thoughts I wanted to just run by you guys before we wrap up our episode, because these are some things I've done and again, open. I like that we don't always have to agree on this podcast. That's one thing I like, is having different minds and thoughts on how we do these things. One thing I did, or I've done from time to time, depending again, if this is catching the crucial conversation very early on, where we're seeing something start to percolate, if you will, pop up, and where I've seen it in an individual or individuals, and it's like kind of nipping in the bud, where I can still talk with them individually, I have no problem with that, but sometimes I found it to be more effective to do a group conversation, meaning kind of not singling out somebody, but just saying, I've noticed a trend, I've noticed things going on in the company, and this is how we're addressing it, and if it gets worse, of course I can have that conversation, but it kind of opens up the conversation. It doesn't need to listen. I don't at that point need to single out anybody, because it's probably a couple of different people are doing this or have adopted a certain way of being. And it's like, well, that's not quite in alignment with what we want to be doing. And so having that either group conversation, or at least getting information out to the team, like you were talking about earlier, Adam, kind of, this is who we are. This is, again, we've got to maybe reset, like you said, Bill, some expectations. So maybe we internally as leaders, us cleaning too, and say, you know what, that policy or procedure, like you said, Adam, isn't quite clear. So I probably need to republish or reset that out, so then I can recalibrate, get realignment. Because I really can't call anybody at this point, because it is fuzzy, it's a little messy. And so I want to clean it up and look at that policy procedure before I have that conversation, right? Thoughts, Adam, or I'll go to you, Adam, or Bill, as we're kind of wrapping it up here.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Sometimes I always like to attack the policy before the person. Sometimes we're just not clear on what we want. We're so excited. We're driving 10 different things, and they're thinking that they understand what we're saying. But we are saying something completely different than what they are trying to achieve themselves. And so look at the policy, the procedure, making sure we're all on the same page first. If they have already read over it, we all agree on where we're going, what we're supposed to be doing, how we're trying to achieve it, and they're just not able to follow it, then it goes down to does this policy procedure need to be adjusted? Is everyone having the same kind of problem that you are having? If not, we find out, okay, is it a cultural difference? Is it a business difference? And then we say, if it's a cultural difference and we're not looking to change the culture of the company, well, maybe we need to help them find a place in the company or some different division where it will work, or help them find a new home for themselves outside of the business where they can be more successful. Because it's also just not as fair to hold on to them when they can be more successful somewhere where they can move forward in a culture that makes sense to them in the style of business that they like to perform it at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bill, any other thoughts there?
Well, one way to do that, to get the buy-in is important when you're changing or introducing new tactics, techniques, protocols, what have you. And one of the best ways to do that is to get the people, the employees, the organization to create it. Go to them. This is an issue we're having. What do you all think? And guide them toward an appropriate solution. That way they can say, in the future, when it's like when the problem comes up again, hey, we came up with this. We need to make this work. And it gives people a little pride and ownership.
I like that.
Doesn't mean you let them run free and wild as far as coming up with the solution. You are the leader. You need to guide them. But yeah,
there's definitely a place for that, Bill. And I think inviting feedback, whether it be a group conversation, a poll, survey, something like that, which they can provide input for further consideration. So as we're coming to an end of the podcast here, this go around, I really appreciate you both being here. I'm going to come back to you, Bill, for final thoughts and takeaways, and Adam here in a moment. We've covered a lot. Just to go back, we've kind of identified here the need for crucial conversations, constructive conflict. Don't hide from it. We need to run into it, face it. And we've come up with some ways of identifying them and tools and techniques in which we can address them, prepare, and have better conversations. So out of all these things we've covered tonight, Bill, what's kind of your key takeaways and things that you want to leave here, and insights that you've taken and share with our listeners?
I think a great idea was Adam's communication logs. I think that's something that can be adapted to most multi-employee companies, and could be very useful in developing all sorts of productive things. Your SOPs, your TTPs, your KPIs, all of those great initial things, and a great way to build up to that all important performance review.
Great, thanks, Bill. Adam, we're so glad to have you here. You've added a lot to the conversation. What are final thoughts and takeaways you have?
The biggest one I can say is it's okay to be afraid, but it's even better to conquer those fears.
Yes.
And if the fear is just having those important conversations, welcome those conversations, welcome those fears. And then as you conquer them, they will no longer control you. And you'll find these conversations not just easier, but even more productive and sometimes fun. To have these deeper conversations with your employees, because they will appreciate the fact that you are coming to them earnestly, giving them opportunity to also to improve, which will help them become better employees and hopefully better leaders as they're growing through your organization as well.
Yeah. That's so powerful. Yeah. And we don't want any to be living with fear, doubt, worry, anxiety. That is not a productive state of being. We'll have it. It's all part of our human condition. It's just a matter of let's face it and overcome that together. So I really appreciate those thoughts, Adam. I hope all of those that are listening and watching can take some of that with you tonight and incorporate that in your next conversation. Look for those and have those crucial conversations. And if you're struggling with this or something like you're like, well, I just not quite know how to do this, or I want more support, reach out to Adam, Bill, myself. We're happy to connect with you. Drop a comment in here. We do appreciate all of your feedback as you listen in and share your insights. We always appreciate that. Like we said earlier, like, subscribe, all of those fun things. Follow us along. We're on YouTube, and love to have you listen to us on any one of your favorite podcast platforms. So again, Adam and Bill, thank you so much for joining me back here on the Business Roundtable podcast.
Thank you, David.
Until next time, have a great evening.
Thanks for having me again. You too.